Hello and welcome to 10 Social Change Rules Explained. My name is Catherine Foley. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the Communications and Operations Associate at the Building Movement Project. Today we're talking about the guide role on the social change ecosystem map, and we're here with Deepa Iyer, our Director of Strategic Initiatives and the creator of the social change map. We initially recorded this on IG Live and then the recording disappeared, so we're re-recording a brief recap of our discussion where we'll be talking about the guides, their strengths, their areas for improvement, and several reflection questions. So really briefly, I'd just like to introduce Deepa Iyer.
Hi, Catherine. I'm so glad that we have a chance to have another version of the conversation we had earlier today.
Great. We also heard from one of our Solidarity Semester alumna, Pebblz Luv, who we're hoping we can get on this recording. But before we get into that, Deepa, I just wanted to ask, what makes someone a guide?
That's a great question. So I am somebody who studied English literature in college. So I like etymology of words. And so the word guide has a Middle English French origin. So it literally means to show the way, to know, to look after. And a guide is someone who has really intimate and personal knowledge of the way. So, what is the way? In this case, we're talking about, as you mentioned earlier, social change and advancing and promoting social change. So, a guide is someone who likely has played another one of the roles on the social change ecosystem framework and is pretty familiar with it. They've developed a lot of skills. They have developed a core competency with one of the other roles, and they're really able to help others who are then navigating those roles. So, for example, a guide who has played the role of a disruptor, which is the role we discussed in February, would be able to help a new person beginning the disruptor role by asking them some questions like, what are the values and vision that you're after when you're playing the disruptor role? Or how are you taking care of yourself? Because that's something I had to learn, the guide might say. So it's really someone who can help the disruptor think critically about their role by bringing in the guide's own experiences and expertise and skills.
Great, thank you. And I love the English lit reference, also an English major myself.
Yay.
Um, what are some,
Abolish the canon.
oh God. What are some practices that guides can follow?
Right. So, I think it's important when we think about these roles to recognize that every single role requires a level of capacity, competency, and skills and strengths. So, with the role of guides, we're really talking about somebody who has, first of all, developed meaningful expertise.
Mhm.
They have gone through a series of lived experiences. They have learned the skills of playing a role. They have deep knowledge about an issue area. And they've done more than that. They've also been able to reflect and synthesize. So, what they're able to do is to actually provide wisdom that is learned and earned, right? So, Guide has this learned and earned wisdom that they're able to bring forth into the world. A second strength and skill that a guide has is a deep interest in sharing that knowledge with someone else and really wanting to coach, not, doing kind of the show and tell. Sorry, let me take that back. So a guide actually doesn't tell you what to do, but perhaps shows you what to do, asks you probing questions to help you come to your own conclusions, but
Mhm.
is able to ask kind of the right questions. Um, in terms of room to grow, there are some practices that guides might want to develop. So, one of those practices is the practice of humility, which means that even if a guide knows exactly what someone should be doing, that they actually kind of pause, self reflect, and utilize a level of humility if they're wanting to share their opinions and their advice. One way of doing that is another practice, which is to seek permission, to be invited into space, to ask, is it all right for me to offer some advice? And then the last practice is actually the practice of transparency. So just being open as a guide to say, we tried this strategy, it didn't really work, so we course corrected, and you might want to think about doing that in order to help the person being guided change or avoid some pitfalls.
Thanks so much. And during our actual IG Live, a lot of people really resonated with the humility aspect, the transparency, the boundaries, specifically when working with other people in their ecosystem. So what do guides need, and who do they work well with in a social change ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, guides often, especially if they're waiting to offer their guidance and their counsel, it's always good for those who are being guided to validate, right? And to say, I really see what you've done in the past and I want to learn from you. Appreciate your guides, respect your guides. And, there was something that you said, Catherine, in the actual IG Live that I found to be really helpful, which is, you said that when you're in a space where you are being guided, that you practice a lot of deep listening. And I think that that's an excellent way of showing, respect, showing that none of us know everything, and that there are ways in which we can show guides that we want to learn from them, that we are inviting them to teach us, and that we really respect what it is that they've done. So who do they work well with? So guides work well with anyone that they have played that role before for, but I think in particular, they work well with experimenters, because experimenters are trying out innovative strategies and techniques. And so a guide can really help an innovator, experimenter think about, what are steps that you might want to take that really advance what has already been done, right? Or they can be helpful for people who are visionaries as well, or even people who are frontline responders. So anywhere in which a guide can offer advice, not to say this is how you should do something, but to say, here are some questions to think about as you move down this path, and to really ask questions around how and why that might allow the person being guided to think more critically, to think more deeply about what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Thanks, Deepa. And what are some real life examples of guides?
So, well, there are guides like, Grace Lee Boggs and Helen Zia, whom I'm wearing on my shirt, who have been really, I think, important in terms of identifying ways in which we promote social change, especially for Asian Americans. There are guides like Audre Lorde, who has reminded us about sustainability and self-care and building power in that way. Ella Baker, who has reminded us about the importance of leaderful movements. And so I think that there are a lot of social change guides out there, that some that we might not know personally, that we learn from through their books, their teachings, their videos and speeches, and then others whom we have in our lives, right? And so I think that it's so important that each of us cultivates an ecosystem that includes a guide or two. So thinking about whom do you want to learn from? What do you want to learn? And how can you actually invite guides into your own ecosystem is a great practice for each of us.
Thank you so much. And one question that I remember someone raised during the IG Live was how can you find a guide if you don't already have one in your ecosystem?
Yeah, right. So I think first of all, I would suggest thinking about what it is that you might want to learn and grow into. So if you are a storyteller and you want to really deepen your skills around that, and you want to be guided by others who were storytellers, then you could kind of be focused on finding a guide who practices those skills. If you don't know anyone directly, if you happen to not know someone directly, then you can also reach out to others in your ecosystem and tell them, this is whom I'm hoping to learn from. Do you know someone who could play that role for me? And again, appreciate, validate, especially if you don't know the person, and ask if they have the capacity to provide that sort of counsel that you're looking for.
Right. Well, thank you so much for making time to do this again.
Of course.
As we mentioned on the actual IG Live, we'll be sharing the follow-up materials, which will be in the form of just an IG slideshow post, so you can see the strengths, the areas of improvement, and additional reflection questions. And if you have any other thoughts, you can drop them into the comments on this post. Hi, Pebbles. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
Do you mind just introducing yourself really quick?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Pebblz Luv. My pronouns are she, her, and my organization is Asian Solidarity Collective. And my role is youth, also currently youth advisor. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, welcome. Pebbles also was part of our fall 2020 solidarity semester. She went through our Power Up internship program, and she's helping out with our spring 2021 solidarity semester. So we're really excited to have her share her insights about stepping into a guide role and share, how guides have helped her get to where she is now. So just to start things off, many of us are looking for guides right now, Pebbles. How have your guides inspired and helped you?
Yes, so first off, I have many guides and they all actually really inspire me. The cool part about my guides is that they are all connected. Like this is because of the relationships that I've built over the few years. Also, I would like to also point out that before I began doing my organizer work, I started breaking with my Yoda, my dad, Dino. From the beginning, Dino has always been my inspiration. He has taught me the art of practice, determination, and elevation. Always continue to elevate your mind, art, and life. Manifesting and putting in the work and to respect and honor my elders and those who have came before me. He continues to support me in everything I do, and that means like so much to me. It's just an honor to have someone like him in my life. And also, cool point is through breaking, I developed a hip hop lens, and through hip hop, I was able to connect with people and build relationships, which led me to Dr. DJ Cutting Candy, who Dino introduced me to, and from that introduction when I first met Candy, was the start of our beautiful, powerful relationship. So yeah, and then Dr. DJ Candy guided me to open my critical consciousness, taught me how to always think critically in everything I do, all my decisions, all my goals. But she also has taught me to dream and set values and know my worth, know my power, so that when I do chase those dreams, I don't lose myself. And that has been such a key for me. Every time I do anything, I always make sure that there's like a purpose and that everything I do aligns with my values that I have set. Also, my favorite part that she has ever taught me was revolutionary love. Candy speaks always on revolutionary love. She not only talks about it or speaks about it, she shows it to you, and it's just like so beautiful. Also, with speaking of Asian Solidarity Collective, Candy brought me into that. So if you don't know what Asian Solidarity Collective is, ASC is a grassroots organization who works to build solidarity with Black, queer, trans, people of color, and other oppressed communities to build towards collective liberation by condemning anti-Blackness. So yeah, I do want to point out my guides also is my community and the most marginalized and impacted. I'm guided by them and prioritizing their needs and in the world. So yeah, always uplifting the most marginalized and impacted and having them lead as well. So me following their lead and having them guide me. Also, I have actually many community mothers. Shout out to all of them. But as for my real mother, my real mommy, she has guided me through life once I was in her belly and out. My mom inspires me to be fierce and gentle. Also, where I get my badass energy from. Lastly, I did want to uplift the conversations that are held in my own home as well. and having an open space and environment to converse on topics with my family and my crew, Cypher State. I emphasize on having a circle with people who continue to elevate as a collective and who share the same values and who show up for each other, no matter what, which is also representing revolutionary love for me is also like a ride or die type of energy. So I'm so thankful and grateful to have a political home, crew, and family and community. um, but I did want to talk about a little bit more on guides and how my journey with and how guides helped me, which is basically on my I would say early organizing journey. There was a moment when San Diego, PQ Village, there was a fight against gentrification. And at the time, that's what I said earlier, at the time, I didn't really understand what was happening, except for how unjust and how much I wanted to fight. So that was a very motivational experience and moment I had. Um, and yeah, so I was hesitant to speak because I felt like I wasn't articulate enough. I didn't look like ideally how an organizer would. But then Cotton Candy guided me to remove those blockages and actually uplift me to see my power and give me tools that can help me speak. And I know that my goal was to articulate or be able to understand these terms such as gentrification, which yeah, when you start organizing, you start hearing and learning the meanings of behind those terms. So yes, that's why Kenny has also helped me speak with that actually, which is what I'm excited to talk about. So in I believe it was last year, sorry, COVID makes me like forget about what year it is or what
It's
day and
okay.
time, but I know that last year, 2020, ASC did a car caravan. So the car caravan was basically also in solidarity with Black Lives. Also, we did hit up the I'm sorry, we pulled up in front of the attention detention centers, and like a lot of I just like I blank out on everything because it happened so fast, but it happened where it wasn't, I can't really talk about it. It's hard for me to explain in words. You just had to be there because it's more of a feeling. Um, but yeah, I did a speech and I co-hosted on Zoom. So that was kind of like the first time I was speaking. And the first time I ever wrote a speech, which is really cool. So in the caravan, that's when I saw people power and I saw revolutionary love. So that was when I physically could see it and feel it at the same time. So that whole experience really motivated me to continue on the work. I always go back to that feeling because it kind of regrounds you and reminds you of why you do it. And which is funny because now I love speaking, even though I get, a little nervous. But, the beauty of being able to put your feelings and how you just like generally feel at that moment and then speak about it at the same time, uplift other voices as well. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, overall it's a blessing to have these guides. It's a blessing to even be able to say that these people are my guides. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Pebbles. That was so beautiful. And you covered so many things. And I appreciate your vulnerability and talking about things that you were nervous about or anxious about when you first started out in this work. And I really love that you lifted up all the different ways that people and organizations and communities can be guides. It's not just one person who has to be your one guide. And I also really loved how you identified the ways that guides can model behaviors and actions, and how many of your guides showed you through their actions how you can, you know, step into the role that you're in now. And with that in mind, I'm curious, the role that you're in now with your organization is a guiding role. So how are you preparing yourself to be a guide?
Yes, I love that question. So stepping into the role of guides, or being a guider, I do remind myself that I do not know everything and that I shall still continue on learning. So, always, like, I guess, because I know Deepa has mentioned about being humble, and that's very important, not to be so egotistical, like you don't really know anything. And at the same time, we really don't know everything because everything evolves. Terms are not the same anymore, or the way we strategize, or maybe there's just a new word that like the next generation made up, and we're like, oh, okay, like we gotta learn and continuously also develop just new terminology and ideology. So yeah, actually I am currently stepping into youth advisor in my youth committee. So basically the whole role of a youth advisor and goal is to continue on guiding and supporting our youth committee and building with other committee members. So there it is also showing an example of intersectional of generations. So we have the youth generation building with the older generation. So that's what I really love about it. This role is also not permanent, so I'm not always going to be the youth advisor. So we do make sure that everyone takes turns in the role of leading and guiding. So also, I guess my role also as a youth advisor is to help guide the next um, whoever is the next youth advisor into that role. So it's really just again sharing your resources and your knowledge. um so yeah, like coming back to answering the question on preparing myself as a guide is to constantly and continuously uplift. And again, I always repeat it because you got to share your resources, knowledge, and experience with those who seek. So again, consent is key. Like you don't want to force it on, like, you want to make sure that they are seeking that, and they actually want it. For example, going back to when I really wanted to know how to articulate and understand terms, Candy has helped me and guided me to understanding how to articulate the way I do now. And at the same time, she does teach me not to, I don't have to sound like anybody else. That's why I love it, because I could sound like myself and at the same time be able to speak out how I feel. So yeah, um, I also had opportunities attending to spaces such as political ed series with Pillars of the Community, People's Collective UJL, being able to be in Solidarity Semester, being able to call myself a Solidarity Semester alumni, okay, and Power Up internship, and I had the honor to learn from Deepa, Anna, and you, Catherine. And currently I just finished my organizing training a few minutes ago with Soul. So basically all these tools and knowledge that I'm receiving is going to be passed down. Like, I'm not going to be a keeper. I'm not going to hide this or keep it to myself. I'm going to make sure that I am passing it down so it could be passed down from generation to generation. Which also leads me into what I love to say is we are raising revolutionaries, not ignorance. We want to make sure our next generation is able to have this knowledge, is able to have these tools. Like, again, like not gatekeeping these knowledge. Like, I want to make sure that everyone has ability to be able to have these resources at their hands, which I do kind of want to get into just a little bit, because I know I could talk so much about it, but like how schools, or like how we should have those environments with organizer lens, so we don't have to question, hey, how are kids, how are youth gonna be able to be our next organizer, our next leaders. I think it's really just because I hear everyone, and I know I talked about this in ASC's roundtable, youth roundtable, let it be known. I know we all talked about how we want um these organizer lens, all these tools that I'm learning in school, which I wish I did learn in school, so like having that already there for the youth. Because at the same time, again, the youth are our next leaders. They are literally the dopest. So yeah, I love the youth. And also going back is my goal as a guide, which is to build with people, making sure everyone has a voice and impact in whatever space that they step in or created. Provide a safe environment where everyone can hold conversations to learn and grow. So making sure there's no judgment, really, like everyone has to honor their path, has to honor um, where they are, and it's okay to not know where this person know what they know. It's okay to be like unaware of certain things, like I'm sorry, let me like backtrack, because like I didn't mean it like that. I meant like where it's okay where you are, honestly. Like, it doesn't matter. It matters. Also, I did want to talk about how I want to actually, as well as Candy did with me, guide them to open their critical consciousness and power, and also keeping in mind of their boundaries and capacity too, because you don't want to overwhelm them. So yeah, I think one of the biggest thing was opening my critical consciousness and recognizing my power. I think that is something that was really really beautiful that happened on my journey. So I definitely want to help uplift other folks who might know it, who might not know it yet, that they actually have this really dope power or really cool power that they can use. So yeah, and I do relate to that as well. When you don't really understand like your critical conscious yet, like you don't know it yet, but you do have like little things that might stick out. Like, hey, like when I was young, I definitely questioned why our society's like this, why is this system like this. So like curiosity, those little curiosities, you have these curiosities, right? And you want to open it to your critical consciousness where you can understand those curiosities, the why you question that. And then you can honestly be very determined to find those answers. So that's the beauty of it all. And also preparing into the next step as a role as a guide is to understand your capacity and your care as well. It is important as everything else not to burn out, as well as someone who wants to stay in the long run. Having to take care of yourself mentally and physically is key. We definitely want to make sure that everyone is, you know, like understanding that it's okay to step back. You don't have to overwork yourself, even though sometimes it feels like that. Like, well, when is there a time to really self-care during this time of what's going on around this world? And I always question that too. Like, how do I take care of myself when I can't even think about myself right now? I'm thinking about different communities. I'm thinking about people that are going through some real stuff. So it's like, how do I think about myself? And I sometimes felt selfish about it. Like, oh, I don't really want to like, um, think about me too much. But then I realized that sometimes you do have to take a step back. Sometimes you do have to really make sure that you're good, because when you jump into things knowing that you don't have a capacity, you can really get tired and not execute your goal as efficient as you want it to be. So yeah, that's kind of something I did think about with this question, is also with guides, guiding yourself to self-care too, you know. But yeah.
I love that. Pebbles, you literally touched on every single thing that is important to being a guide. You touched on the importance of humility, of transparency, not gatekeeping knowledge, of capacity, of consciousness building, self-care, a lot of C's. We like the C's.
Yes.
What was the other one? I can't remember what it was, but I really appreciate you lifting up all these different things, all these different elements that really make up what it means to be a guide. And I think you are well on your way to being an excellent guide. I think you're going to guide a lot of people. And I think, many soon to be organizers will benefit from you as a guide.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just curious if you have any final thoughts that you want to share with us before we head back over to Deepa.
Yes. I probably don't at the moment, but definitely if anyone wants to have more of a conversation with this, or maybe like for people that want to be connected with a guide, or maybe just don't really know how to get into the movement, I think just let me know. I can connect you. I can share all my resources and knowledge with you. But yes, that's pretty much all I have for now. For now. But yes, thank you so much, Catherine and Deepa, for this opportunity. It's an honor to share the space and presence with this beautiful energy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Pebbles. It's always nice to talk with you.
Thanks so much, everyone, for watching, and a special thanks to Catherine and Kitty on the BMP team.